Trial by Trolley. This is a simple, slightly outrageous, one of those slightly inappropriate party games, one of those that have very simple mechanics and the fun comes from what the participants are going to add to the general script provided by the game. To me, this is a particularly fascinating game though, because it is based on the philosophical dilemma of the trolley card problem, which is used in ethics to exemplify the advantages and also the limits of utilitarianism. The basic philosophical dilemma, which I use in the classes that I teach at IU when we talk about politics, warfare, espionage, that's also one of the topics I teach about. The trolley car problem is this. Imagine you are seeing a runaway trolley car that is going at top speed down a track. The track split at a certain point. On one track there are 5 people unable to move, and on the other track there is 1 person also unable to move, and you will pull the lever, and you can pull the lever and decide where it goes. So you decide who lives and who dies, and the idea would be that when you present the problem this way, most people say, well, I sadly will have to let the 1 person die to save 5. And then, of course, you can start it in detail and you make it a lot more interesting. On one track, there are 2 people, but they're 95 years old. And on the other track, there is a child. Now it starts thinking, well, should we think about the potential they had their life? On one track there are 5 people that you know nothing about. On the other track there is 1 young doctor has 30% chances of finding the cure for cancer. And so when you add the faces to the general problem, then it becomes a lot more interesting. And so I was truly fascinated by the fact that now there is a party game that was based on that dilemma, and actually it captures that dilemma pretty well. You can play it with, well, almost any number of people, but at least 3. The game comes with this little board here. And during the game, each player will be the conductor once, deciding who lives and who dies. And so you place this board facing the conductor. If I'm the conductor right now, then that's how we place the board on the table. Everybody else will be split into 2 teams. And don't worry if they're not the same number, that doesn't really matter. Fascinating, isn't it? Because the teams change all the time. Basically each turn, 1 player will be a conductor who is not part of any team, and everybody else is divided into 2 teams. So suppose we have 9 other players. Well, these 4 are 1 team, and then the other 5 are another team. Then the next person becomes a conductor, and maybe the next 4 or 5 are 1 team, and now I am part of the other team. So that changes all the time. The game also comes with death tokens. At the end of the game, the player with the fewest death tokens wins the game. If there's a tie, which is very likely, there's no tiebreaker, because it really was never about the deep strategy to get this or that point. It's about the ridiculous situations that you will create during the game. And then the game comes with 3 types of cards. The ones that you see here with the red edge, they're the evil cards, representing characters that most people will likely consider evil or unpleasant. Good cards representing people or other kinds of sentient beings or things that most people will find nice, desirable, and then modifiers, which may just be anything. There's a general idea. Each turn, 1 player is the conductor. Then you draw, and then the other 2 teams are each associated to one of the tracks. You take 2 random good cards, totally random, and you add 1 at the beginning of each track. Then each team receives 3 good cards, 3 evil cards, and 3 modifiers. And each team chooses to place a good card on their own track, an evil card on the team's track, and a modifier can be anywhere to modify any character or any situation. There's a lot of variety there. So basically, after this simple procedure is performed, each track will have a randomly placed good card, a selected good card, a bad card placed there by the other team, an evil card placed there by the other team, and modifiers may be anywhere. Maybe a track has 1 or 2 or 0. And then the conductor chooses who lives and who dies. But well, no, before then, actually, each team has a chance of pleading their case or trying to convince the conductor to murder or let the other track, the people on the other track, die. So each team tries to convince the conductor, which is already truly the heart of the game. That's what the game really is. And then the conductor, maybe with a little bit of suspense, then the conductor chooses who lives and who dies, and all the people on the dying team receive a death token. Continue like this until everybody has been the conductor once, and then you assign victory. If you want to, you may even forget that because you're still talking about all the crazy situations that emerge during the game. You're still laughing your butt off because of that. So who cares about that? So the art, you may recognize it if you have ever been on the internet, if you know this tool of modern communication called the internet. These are the people from Cyanide and Happiness, really fun, minimalistic cartooners. And to give you some example of the evil things, you may have a rowdy American tour group of tourists, a cartoonish evil baron, an obnoxious teenage couple making out on the tracks, the vat of liquefied hamburgers that gives Donald Trump all the power, but they spelled the hamburgers wrong. It's spelled hamburgers. Everybody knows that. An obnoxious reverse mermaid, a horrifying reverse mermaid. Actually, I'm like, that's part of the fun, is that some of the things are relative. My scientific curiosity is triggered by, I like to do horrifying experiments on this mermaid instead of just killing it right there. The one critic that gave Toy Story 3 a bad review, well, an angry mob about to burn a witch, a ruthless and deadly hitman, and so on and so forth. And some are a little more inappropriate than others. This is probably not a family, child-friendly game. The guy in a creepy van trying to lure children in the ice cream, not okay for families. A notorious cannibal. And again, maybe I want to send the notorious cannibal to jail instead, or I want to meet him and ask him for some recipes. I don't know. It's fun, of course, when you realize that there are some angles there that you hadn't considered, and the conductor maybe doesn't find all that bad. Knowing the conductor may help you win, but it's not necessarily to have fun. Precisely, actually, there's a lot of fun stuff like, I'm gonna put on the good track the cute talking dog. The conductor hates dogs. So, and for the good stuff, you may destroy the Garden of Eden. There you go. I know a lot of theologians around you that think that the fall from the Garden of Eden is necessary for some grand divine design, and then you'll be honored to be part of that grand divine design. A 60-year-old widow finally pursuing the lifelong dream to be an artist, but will she succeed? I'm just showing you how you're probably gonna try to turn things around when you're making your case, when these things are on the other person's track. A princess waiting for a true lover's first kiss, a school bus, a fully furnished home available to rent and well under your price range. A bunch of meddling kids. I mean, teenagers solving a mystery. And so on and so forth. Your favorite sibling. That's interesting. They tried to use this one when I was a conductor. I don't have any siblings, so that wasn't all that as powerful. A live performance of my favorite band. My favorite band hasn't done anything good in 30 years, so I wouldn't even go to one of their performances. The entire population of New Zealand. But what if some of you is from Australia and likes those horrible jokes about New Zealand? I've heard them, and maybe you have heard too. All the fish in the sea, and so on and so forth. As for modifiers, it can be, again, anything that you attach to something else. So, for example, yes, you can go to a live performance of your favorite band, but the opponent, to make it less appealing, shows you that the singer likes pineapple on pizza. And really, if you endorse that, I mean, or it's on the number 1 on the FBI most wanted list. So with these arrows, you will modify several characters, and of course that you make it even more hilarious. Maybe the number 1 on the FBI most wanted list turns out to be a baby from the Amazons, or it was the cute talking dog that just robbed a convenience store at gunpoint. So it's not just about about the effect of say on whether or not that would be desirable to murder or let die. Escape from a security prison, but maybe the person was innocent, you make the case, so hooray. See, this actually is part of one of the standard variations of the dilemma. Has no friends. That's a tricky one. Is that a good thing that you want to murder this person, take them out of their misery, or you want to give them a chance? I'll let that to you to decide. One of them, I love it because I can't find the card now. It was one of my favorite ones. Says, starts every sentence with, I'm not racist, but... Fun. This is the game, and we had such a good time. Of course, when I review it, when I say it's a great game, of course I'm talking about in its own category. But then I always do, when I review a war game positively, I don't review it because it's a great party game. And the same thing here. It's not about the strategy. Party games are about creating fun, ridiculous interactions to help the players be creative, and it really works. It's a great party game. May not be a great whatever game in other situations, but it's an absolutely hilarious, ridiculous party games. And just so we get there, because you want me to get there to talk about Cards Against Humanity, don't you? Well, I'm gonna talk about it anyways. It solves the Cards Against Humanity problem, which is, I really don't like Cards Against Humanity because ultimately whoever has the most racist, the most sexist card wins. And that game really doesn't feel like a game that gives you the opportunity to be creative, to be funny, but simply you create the most outrageous thing and you're likely to win. And that game does work truly as a shield, like, well, I'm not making a racist or sexist or ableist joke as the card, ha ha ha. So I don't know if it's a game for horrible people, but I believe that you are being horrible, your behavior is horrible when you play Cards Against Humanity. And I don't like it because I just don't find it humorous and I find it annoying. I like this game because it does allow you a vast range of fairly inappropriate behavior, but you do not have to be horrible. It still gives you a chance to be, and that's the funny thing. If in your group you all like the kind of humor, then everybody's making those connections and those combinations, and you can. And good for you. This is a game that will also work for horrible people, or people that like to be horrible when they are playing party games, but also works for people like me and my group that will like to be maybe slightly inappropriate, but definitely would like to be creative, we definitely like to make hilarious arguments without having that dark element. It is a game that is much more flexible than Cards Against Humanity and other kind of party games, because you can have that incredibly inappropriate humor, but you don't have to. Every time you choose a card is from a range of 3, so chances are that you get at least one horrible and one not so horrible card. And then, again, you can spin things around. And to me, that is really the most fun part, which is when you try to convince the conductor how you can spin things around. So it's not just about putting those cards physically together and the game creates that connection, but then you can totally turn it around and you add that creative element. It's hilarious, and it can work in your group precisely because it is such a more flexible generator of weird situations than other games. I am a big fan also of the art of Cyanide and Happiness, so anything that has those ridiculous looking characters on it, to me already starts, from a position from a strong position. But this game, luckily enough, is not just a collection of fun images, but it also has an engine that is just fun. It creates funny situations. The fact that I'm an academic familiar with the philosophical problem makes it even more interesting to me. I played it with other academics. I played it with a cognitive scientist who studies and teaches about empathy, and he's gonna use it in his classes because this is a perfect way of also exploring that from even an academic perspective. After all, it is the very philosophical problem that we talk about in academic settings. So if you're an academic, a scholar, a teacher that ever teaches about that problem, you can honestly use this game as a teaching tool. Maybe select only the cards that you think will work in class, that you think you're gonna use to make a point, but then you can still play the actual game and still discuss the actual problem. This is very faithful, 100% fidelity to the source material, incredibly thematic in that sense. So, in sum, Trial by Trolley, so much fun, so ridiculous, and so philosophically interesting. Definitely high endorsement from me. We had a great time playing it. This is definitely gonna be one of those games that will be in the rotation for party games, for those games that we play at the end of game night, maybe when you're tired, or as a warm-up activity when we have a large crowd before we split into smaller groups and play different games. Trial by Trolley. Hilarious, fun, more interesting than Cards Against Humanities, and in general, a really fun party game.